What is up, Artemers? I hope you are doing super duper well on this glorious holiday season, the spookiest of all, Halloween. If you are new here, hello, my name is Alex. I talk about philosophy and such. Today, I wanted to talk to you about one of the spookiest and scariest phenomena known to affect human beings known to date. Groupthink. And that is, of course, just my own personal opinion. Someone else might think otherwise. Follow the lead of everyone around us. Groupthink is a horror unlike anything else simply because it seeps into our freedom of choice. As Tommy Lee Jones once said,
"A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it."
Sayings like, I was just following orders, I was just doing what everyone else was doing, or I was just moving with the flow of traffic. These are all excuses to sway away one's own individual responsibility, aka like ethical, moral responsibility. The Loving Oxford Languages defines groupthink as the practice of thinking or making decisions as a group in a way that discourages creativity or individual responsibility. Their example in a sentence is, there's always a danger of groupthink when two leaders are so alike. And so in the aftermath of horrors or just certain situations, we feel that because we follow orders from other people, we aren't necessarily responsible for our actions because they weren't necessarily our own choice of action. What's worse is that in the midst of groupthink, we often are just following this subconsciously and not realizing that we're not thinking for ourselves, very unfortunately. Of course, we may feel quite conscious of our decisions when we are given an order to follow. We may think twice about this if it is something that seems wrong, but if you are in a group of people and other people are doing that wrong thing, then you may even find it that this is not wrong. If they're showing no hesitation, then why is it wrong? It might just be perfectly fine. In truth, we can actually be swayed away from our own ethical beliefs if we see other people with no remorse, no hesitation, no consequences. This will lead to groupthink in various situations, whether that be something that's terribly wrong, evil, perfectly fine. Like, this is just groupthink. People are lambs. As we all know, we are a social species, and because of this, we need community. Thusly, we follow other people. Within our communities, we may see groupthink as social norms, such as folkways, mores, and taboos. If you are curious to learn more about social norms, I would encourage you to check out my recent video, Living Beyond Good and Evil. It goes over it as well as, above it and beyond. But examples of groupthink within social norms could be something as simple as people forming lines. I think the most common one would be a long line for the bathroom, and you're waiting and realize that people are actually lining up behind someone just outside of the bathroom. They didn't realize, so... Or maybe a more common example would be a people flowing through an open door, just like lining up through it, not realizing that there's like 5 more doors next to it that are completely open and ready to go. One could even say that common knowledge could be within the category of groupthink because it convinces everyone to think and follow the same thing. Is milk actually necessary for our living beings to grow? No. Many things have calcium and vitamin D in them, and that's all just advertising. So while common knowledge is more like widespread throughout large, massive areas, groupthink can also be like a small game of telephone within smaller groups. But of course, the message stays the same, whereas in the game telephone, it's supposed to become like silly, so. But say it's about 200 years ago and you make some delicious herbal tea, realize that it makes you feel great, maybe it wards off fevers. You give it to a friend, but they end up telling their mother. Their mother convinces your friend that you're a witch, and now they are both off telling the entire town. And then suddenly you're a witch. Like, you're being hanged. And that's what happened. Awful game of telephone right there, but nonetheless, people came together thinking one thing because of what one person said. One single person. When wanting to belong to a community, we will often naturally follow the lead of everyone around us, including friends and authority. Of course, you probably know this, but society is something that we will all naturally crave as it brings us nourishment, security, and, people to breed with. But because we do naturally follow our parents, friends, authorities, we may end up subconsciously following them in doing things that we may have not done in the first place. Now, of course, there can also be groupthink between two people. Have you ever been in the instance where you're out on a walk with a friend and then suddenly you're like, where are we going? And they say, oh, I was following you. This is like the simplest of examples when it comes to just subconsciously following another person and not realizing they are also just subconsciously following too. Another example that comes to mind very often is when you are doing something because you think another person wants you to do it, but in fact they are also doing it because they think you want it too, but in fact neither of you want it, ever. Say for instance, what about that awful casserole that your mother or partner makes? You won't tell them that you hate it, they aren't saying anything, they think you love it, and both of you guys are just smiling and saying how it's so delicious, but then both of you are having an awful time, not communicating to each other. Why? Because groupthink. This is the only answer. If we're just following each other subconsciously, or trying to appease one another, maybe even eventually subconsciously, we are all just in a happy falsehood. A false happiness. At first I thought Oxford Languages in a sentence example was very strange until I looked at my script and the two-person groupthink. There's always a danger of groupthink when two leaders are so alike. If you have two leaders walking down the road of destruction and the other one's, oh, I was following you-ing the situation, then things will turn dangerous very fast without either of them actually ever meaning to do this. Or maybe they're just trying to appease the other one, and it's sort of a competition of just ramping up, appeasing the other one. This is kind of like when you get into a relationship with a bad apple, and then suddenly both of you are ramping up, trying to up one another in your bad deeds, and then all of a sudden you're saving the high school you once hated and from him, making a mess of the place. In Heathers, it really is fantastic that Veronica, realized JD was insane, because otherwise we would have had a complete Bonnie and Clyde situation on our hands.
That's it. We're breaking up.
What? You can't bring him back. You must know that.
I am not trying to bring anybody back except maybe myself.
In the horrors of cults and cultic behavior, groupthink is one of the foremost powerful characteristics of controlling other people. AKA, without the ability to push folks to move with the herd, cult leaders would not have the ability to control their followers. It is often the support of the cult leader's first followers that gets other people motivated to join in and listen. And this is because the cult leader has a larger voice to show their followers what joyous communities they want to bring to the world. The first followers are a proven example of the beliefs and rules and lifestyle that the cult leader has perfected to bring people toward happiness. And once again, this is just a community that we will be secure in. But unfortunately, in cults, if one were to sway away from the flow of traffic, they could be shunned, harmed, or made an example of for the rest of everyone for what happens when you don't follow the cult leader. All of this mixed with more exploitative behavior, one's worldview can be repainted completely towards a groupthink that, from an outside perspective, could look incredibly strange, maybe completely normal, or just straight up evil.
Oh, I shouldn't have let you stay for that. I mean, I know it looks extreme, but
I don't know why I'm here, Pele.
And so what we do now, within our own in-group think, what we do is completely normal and right and just, where it is often not in terms of cults. Because of our social need for community, vulnerable people actually often fall victim to cultic tactics and behavior because it provides the security, the nourishment, the everything you need, the people, to be a happy, healthy human being. Whereas, in fact, people do not realize what they are getting into is something that is exploitative and not actually for the benefit of them. It's more for the benefit of the cult leader. But we do not blame anyone, as cults can be highly persuasive, and vulnerable times are vulnerable times. With that, happy Halloween! I hope I was able to give you a little fright, maybe give you a little less hope in humanity itself, but a scary Halloween spooky Artem special nonetheless. Overall, groupthink is a killer of individuality and creativity and thusly authenticity. And so, if you see it in your life, be sure to check it, check it out before you wreck it out. But seriously, groupthink is incredibly scary. It can lead to things such as prejudices, stereotypes, racism, sexism, awful world destruction, aka, like World War II. It's bad. It's really bad. It's really scary. And I'm sorry if I brought you down with any of this. But it is a very prominent thing in scary movies. If you have any awesome examples that you have seen in scary movies or like in your life, I would absolutely love to hear. That would be super duper amazing. Again, happy Halloween. I love you, and I hope you are safe out there if you go trick-or-treating. I really appreciate you sticking to the end. So, happy holidays. Bye.